functions of the cardiovascular system is the transportation of blood. The blood carries oxygen, nutrients, cell waste, hormones, and other vital substances for homeostasis to and from cells. Pulmonary circulation is a portion of the cardiovascular system which carries deoxygenated blood away from the heart to the lungs and returns oxygenated blood back to the heart. Left side of the heart pumps oxygen-rich blood throughout the body and then to the right side of the heart. Systemic circulation is the part of the cardiovascular system which carries oxygenated blood away from the heart to the body and returns deoxygenated blood back to the heart.
The heart pumps nutrient-rich blood throughout the body. The heart wall is made up of three parts: the epicardium, myocardium, and endocardium. Then the heart is further divided into four parts: right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. It also has two atria and two ventricles. Pericardium is a double sac of serous membrane that encloses the heart. The visceral pericardium, also known as the epicardium, tightly hugs the external surface of the heart and part of the heart wall. The parietal pericardium is connective tissue at the base or the bottom of the heart. It functions to aid in protection of the heart and anchors it to the structures surrounding it. The epicardium or outer is made up of pericardium. The myocardium, which is the middle, is thick bundles of cardiac muscle that is twisted into ring-like shaped arrangements, the heart skeleton. Endocardium is a thin sheet of endothelium lining the chambers of the heart. Atria is the upper two heart chambers, known as receiving chambers. It functions to take in the blood and fill the ventricles. It pumps blood from the heart throughout the body. Ventricles are the lower two chambers. It receives the blood that travels throughout the body and back to the heart. Ventricle walls are thicker than atrial walls.
Blood vessels are channels that run throughout the body. Arteries function to transfer the blood away from the heart and also to accommodate increased blood volume. The arteries expand after each individual heartbeat. Arteries also regulate blood pressure and are capable of dilating, which lowers blood pressure. It contains squamous epithelial cells in the inner membranous endothelium. It has a thick middle layer that is made up of smooth as well as elastic muscle fibers and has a fibrous connective tissue layer. Capillaries' function is the exchange of nutrients and waste between blood and body cells. Arteries branch into capillaries. Capillaries are very narrow, composed of one layer of endothelial cells. The axillary beds open and close to shunt blood from one body system to another. Veins/venules. Their function is to return blood from capillary beds back to the heart. It serves as a reservoir of more than half of the blood volume. Venules drain blood from capillaries, then join to form a vein. The veins have the same three layers as an artery, except the wall is much thinner. Veins also have valves that allow blood to flow in only one direction.
Blood helps maintain homeostasis. Blood also transports molecules to and from capillaries as well as guards the body against microbial invasion. In order to minimize the amount of blood loss, the blood clots. Function of the blood is to carry oxygen and nutrients to the blood cells, as well as carry secretions and metabolic waste away from cells. Blood also contains phagocytic cells that fight off infection. Part of the blood is the plasma, 92% water, and it contains proteins, ions, glucose, lipids, amino acids, and vitamins. It functions to transport organic molecules, maintain blood volume, water, and also diffuses water into capillaries and blood clotting as a result of protein fibrinogen.
There are three formed elements from blood. Red blood cells, which contain hemoglobin that functions to bind with oxygen. Red blood cells form from stem cells in the bone marrow. They carry oxygen to the blood. White blood cells are cells produced inside the bone marrow and are stored in the blood and lymphatic tissues. The white blood cells then flow through the bloodstream to attack viruses, bacteria, and other foreign unknown invading substances. 5 types are lymphocytes, B and T cells that help fight off infection in the bloodstream immune system. Monotype into macrophages. Neutrophils make up about 60% of the white blood cells. Eosinophils and basophils are responsible for allergic responses. Platelets are large cells that are found in the bone marrow and function to clot blood.
Heart has two sides, a right side and a left side, and four chambers: the top receiving chambers, or atrium, and the lower chambers, which are thick-walled pumping chambers, called the ventricles. Red blood cell will come from either the superior vena cava or the inferior vena cava and enter into the right atrium. The blood then flows across the tricuspid valve to the right ventricle. The right ventricle then squeezes and ejects that blood cell into a vessel called the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery splits into two vessels, each going to the lungs. As that red blood cell makes its way through the lung, it returns through the pulmonary veins to the left atrium. That blood is now oxygenated. It's picked up oxygen, then goes across the mitral valve into the left ventricle, which does most of the work in terms of delivery of blood flow to the body. That blood cell is now ejected into the aorta to some organ or muscle or skin in the human body.
3 important integrations. The respiratory system. It helps in getting oxygen to tissues and getting carbon dioxide out. The respiratory system is involved in supplying oxygen to the blood and removing carbon dioxide. When the heart receives blood that is low in oxygen and high in carbon dioxide, it pumps it to the lungs via the pulmonary arteries. The lungs then expand and get fresh air from the environment, and oxygen is transferred into the low oxygen blood, which sends some of its carbon dioxide back into the lungs. Now that this blood has fresh oxygen in it, it returns to the heart, and the heart then pumps it throughout the body. Digestive system provides heart with nutrients from small intestine to be delivered throughout the bloodstream. That helps the tissues and cells to function properly. Urinary, key role of kidney, gets rid of all the toxins in the blood. It balances the pH by controlling the excretion of hydrogen ions. If it were not for the urinary system, the heart would have to work harder than it can handle.
Disorders/diseases. High blood pressure. High blood pressure is also called hypertension. This is a dangerous disease that makes the heart work hard to pump blood to the body and contributes to hardening of the arteries and heart failure. It is measured in two ways, systolic and diastolic. The systolic is when the left ventricle is mostly contracted, and diastolic is when the left ventricle is mostly relaxed prior to the next contraction. Normal blood pressure is around 100 to 140 systolic and 60 through 90 diastolic. Hypertension is when the blood pressure is constantly above 140 over 90. Hypertension rarely has any symptoms and is usually found in screening. Some people report headaches, lightheadedness, vertigo, altered vision, or fainting episodes. It can be caused from smoking, overweight, lack of physical activity, too much salt, age, genetics, and chronic kidney and thyroid disease. It can be prevented by making lifestyle changes such as eating a healthier diet and quitting smoking, and also getting more exercise. Treatment with medication is also recommended.
Heart attack is known as a myocardial infarction, MI, a permanent damage to the heart muscle. Heart requires constant supply of oxygen-rich blood to nourish it. Coronary arteries are the critical source of blood supply for the heart. As fatty matter, calcium, proteins, and inflammatory cells build up inside the walls of arteries, it forms plaque, which then eventually is the main site of blood clotting, which can eventually block the entire artery, preventing oxygen to gain access to the heart muscle. As a result, the death of heart cells ultimately causes a heart attack. Symptoms of a heart attack include discomfort, pressure, heaviness or pain in areas of the chest, arm, or right below the breastbone. Discomfort radiates towards the back, jaw, throat, or arm. Indigestion, choking feelings, which are similar to the feeling of heartburn, sweating, nausea, vomiting or dizziness, extreme weakness, anxiety, shortness of breath with irregular and rapid heartbeats. Treatments include either drug therapy and or surgery depending on the severity of the heart attack.
Leukemia is a cancer that usually begins in the bone marrow and results in a high number of abnormal blood cells. These blood cells do not fully develop and cause leukemia cells. There are four main types of leukemia: acute lymphocytic, acute myeloid, chronic lymphocytic, and chronic myeloid. The symptoms may include bleeding and bruising, feeling very tired, a fever, and an increase of infection. This happens because of a lack of normal blood cells. The cause is unknown, but it is believed to be inherited and environmental factors. Chemotherapy, radiation therapy, targeted therapy, and bone marrow transplant are all ways to help treat it. The success is based on the type of leukemia and the age of the person. The average rate of survival for 5 years is 57%.
Fun facts. Heart is approximately the size of a fist that weighs less than a pound. Another fact is the heart beats 3 billion times in the average person's life. There are about 8 million blood cells that die in the blood every second. There are about 5 million red blood cells in a tiny drop of blood. If you lay out all the veins, arteries, and capillaries in an adult from end to end, it would stretch 60,000 miles. And lastly, the heart pumps about 6,000 quarts of blood per day.